So bear with us as we go through this. In your notebooks, there is a sheet that looks like this. You may want to, once we get into the math calculations, you may want to pull that out.
We better leave a line open if there's more than their sheet.
Yep.
So leave one of them on.
All right, so I kind of want to start with the end in mind, just so you guys get an appreciation of what it is that we're actually trying to do. So your groups will all be assigned a certain number of animals that weigh a certain weight. There's a certain amount of forage available, and then there's just only so much forage in the field, right? And then we're also going to assign your group a percent utilization. So how much of that forage are they actually going to utilize? Your paddocks are going to be a set width. So what you are really trying to figure out is how long do you need to make your paddock so that the animals in your group have enough forage to get through their grazing period. So we're going to be talking in kind of small numbers today, but this would apply if you've got 30, 50, 100 cows, and you've got 10-acre paddocks. We're talking about much smaller paddocks in this exercise today, but that is what ultimately you're going to end up with. Ultimately, when we go through all this math, you are calculating how long your paddock needs to be, because I've already told you it's going to be 35 feet wide. So just kind of bear with us and keep that in mind. Want to go over a kind of a few grazing terms. One of those is animal unit month. So an animal unit month is how much forage it takes to support a 1,000-pound cow and calf for 30 days. That's your month, so standardize it to 30 days. Or, in small ruminant terms, 5 ewes for 30 days. So keep in mind, if we kind of set that animal unit at 1,000 pounds for a cow, most of us are going to have cows that weigh over 1,000 pounds. So if I've got a 1,400-pound cow, really she's a 1.4 animal unit, not 1. And so we need to kind of think about that, especially when we start thinking about how much forage those animals need. Stocking rate is the pounds or numbers of animal that we can run on a unit of land over a given time. So if we've got 2 steers that weigh 600 pounds, and we're trying to run them for 120 days, that's 1,200 pounds per acre. 600 times 2, 1,200 pounds per acre is our stocking rate. Stocking density is the relationship of animals to the land at a given moment of time on that land base. So it's, for example, if we've got 40 cows that weigh 1,400 pounds, and we've got them in a really small, half-acre strip, we've got 112,000 pounds per acre, okay? So when we think about stocking rate, that is really the number we need to think about on kind of a whole farm basis, whereas stocking density is what we use when we are thinking about an individual paddock. So, how many cattle can I graze on my pasture or land? Your carrying capacity, so how much you can run, is the stocking rate that is both economically and environmentally sustainable during the full grazing season. What do I mean by that? Well, I could run way more animals on my land than my forage base could provide. But if I'm going to expect them to perform, maintain condition, grow, that's going to take additional feed resources, right? So then, or is that economically sustainable? Depends on a lot of factors. It may or may not be. And so maybe the stocking rate actually needs to come down. And that's what Dr. Smith was kind of talking about earlier, is a common mistake we see on operations is that we are just simply overstocked. When people have got issues with forages, that is usually a factor in that situation. So your carrying capacity is your annual forage production times how much you're going to utilize, your utilization rate. Because keep in mind, we don't want them to go out and graze everything right down to the soil surface, right? They're going to leave some behind. How much those animals are going to consume, and the length of your grazing season, right? And that kind of gives us an idea of what our farm or operation can carry. All right, so I kind of already talked about that animal unit. So the 1,300-pound cow, in this case, she's 1.3 animal units. So I'm going to assume that 90% of that animal unit is equal to her dry matter intake and forage. And so we talk a lot about dry matter intake because ultimately that's what we care about, right? There's a forage component to that water, but we need to know that the pounds of dry matter, because that's the nutrients, the energy and protein that's really sustaining those animals. So if we've got 900 pounds of dry matter, a 1.3 animal unit, we need 1,170 pounds of dry matter, or she's going to consume 1,170 pounds of dry matter from our forage. In a situation where we have 35 cow-calf pairs, if we've got 35 cow-calf pairs, we've probably got a bull, right? And the bull's going to eat something, so don't forget the bull. And he's going to be probably closer to 1.8 animal units. So those 35 cow-calf pairs are going to eat about 41,000 pounds. That bull's going to eat about 2,100 pounds. Now we've got 43,056 pounds of dry matter intake per month that we need to supply to those animals. So we think about our land production. If our pasture base is producing 8,000 pounds of dry matter per acre, again, I kind of already talked about this concept that we're not gonna graze it all, right? We don't want to graze it all the way down to the soil surface. So there's this common assumption of a take half, leave half. So if there's 8,000 pounds of dry matter out there, but we're going to leave half of it, then we really only have 4,000 pounds of dry matter available, right? So if we have 80 acres, and they're going to be able to consume 4,000 pounds of dry matter per acre, that's 320,000 pounds of dry matter. We said that our herd's going to require 43,056. Then that means I've got enough forage for 7.4 months, 30 days a month. I've got 225 days of grazing available at 2.3 acres per pair. So, going through that example, it really kind of shows you, now, do I really, I've got 365 days in the year, and that in this scenario, I've only got enough forage to get me by 225 days of those. So, do I want to maybe decrease my stocking rate to increase my grazing days, right? That might be something that you start to ask yourself in that scenario. Now, keep in mind that this 2.3 acres per pair, this dry matter production per acre, that's fluctuating, right? Forages don't read the textbook. And certainly in years like this year and the last several years where we get some drought going on, that certainly impacts our forage production and things that we need to think about. So you can certainly use this type of map to really start thinking and planning and assessing your own operation. But now we're going to get kind of back into the exercise for what you need in your paddock area. So, things that we're going to use today to help you figure this out. You're going to be given the number of head and how much they weigh. We're going to tell you about how much we think they're going to consume. So their intake on a dry matter basis as a percent of their body weight. We'll tell you how much available forage is out there. We'll tell you how much time they're going to spend in that paddock. We're going to give each group, it's going to have their target utilization rate, so yours may be different than your neighbor's. And then we're also going to give you that fixed width of 35 feet. So we need to solve for the area of the paddock, and then since you already have the width, you just need to determine the length. So in your notebook, you've got a table that looks like this. It does not have the correct numbers, so real quickly, jot down for your group numbers, so your 1 through 8, you need the number of head, that utilization. I think the only things that's probably different is the number of head and the average animal weight. But quickly jot that down for your group so you've got it. Everyone good? All right. All right, so we need to calculate the amount of forage that our animals need. How much are they actually going to need to eat? Okay, so at this point, we're not worried about what's actually in the field. We're worried about what the animals actually need. So in order to do that, I need to know the average weight of my animals, which you'll have. The number of head in the group, which you have. Their forage dry matter intake, which you've got in your table. And that is in a decimal form, so that's one thing that we'll work through. And then the days in the paddock. So your days in paddock for this scenario is 0.75. Because we're going to put them in there later today, we're going to pull them out tomorrow. They're not even in there for a full 24 hours. So keep in mind, in your grazing system, you may not want to have such a short period of time, but that's what we're working with just in the grazing school. So you all need to, yep.
Going back to the last slide.
Yes.
It has 775 for the weight.
Yes.
Chart that we have here is 750.
Yep, go 775. Yep.
Can you hold that there just a minute?
Yes. Yep. Yep. Good? Yep. All right. Okay, so to calculate how much forage your animals need, you're going to take your average animal weight. So for those of you in the cattle group, that's 775. For those of you in sheep group 7, that's 150, and sheep group 8 is 185. Times your number of animals. So in my example up here, I have 2, but you guys have more in your actual groups. Times their dry matter intake as a percent of their body weight. So in that table, it'll say probably 2, 3, or 4%. You need to change that over to a decimal. So 2% becomes 0.02. And then multiply that by the days in your paddock. And that's going to tell you how many pounds of dry matter your animals need for this 3/4 of a day. You don't have utilization here. You're not using that utilization number yet. You need the intake column. Yep. You do need that intake column number. Yep. So average animal weight times your number of animals times dry matter intake as a decimal times 0.75. And if anybody has questions, if you need help, raise your hand. We can walk around the room and help you if you need it. Yep. Yep. It is. Do what? So the 4% would be 0.04. So you're looking at 69.8. Should be your final number, depending on rounding.
Does it all come together for you? Anybody have a question? What is this number? What is this equation?
So that is giving you how much forage your animals are going to need to consume in pounds of dry matter.
All pounds of dry matter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Total for all the animals.
Yes.
For 3/4.
Yep. Yep.
Does it matter the quality of the dry matter?
Not yet. That's a good. We'll kind of get on that, but yes, not yet.
Doesn't matter if you can go, you're adding supplementing grain, it's strictly forage.
So this is assuming strictly forage. Yep. If you were supplementing, then how much forage they would consume would go down, just because they're meeting some other needs there.
Are you going to talk about winter grazing with hay? Are we going to get there?
I don't know how much we talk on it in this program. I can't remember, but we do have some really good online webinars if we don't get what you need. Okay.
Like most people cow calves like I am, and so you're all year round. You're
Yep. Yes.
throwing hay in there.
Yep. We will.
But
trying
you're
to
also saying 75% of the year, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
it kind of factors.
Yes. Yep. So we're really in this situation. We're really just in the grazing season. Yep.
Weight times 3 animals times 0.2,
Yep.
and the net number times 0.75.
Yep. You got it. All right. So at this point, if you are groups 1, 3, or 5, you guys would all have the same number. So anybody from one of those groups want to tell me what you came up with?
35, but I disagree with
Okay. Well, 35 is the answer I got. So 2, 4, and 6, groups 2, 4, and 6, you all should have the same answers. What did you come up with? 2, 4, and 6? Yeah, I've got 69.8. So 69.75, I just rounded it. So you've got your 775 pounds times your 3 head times your 3 head. Yep. That's where it's wrong in your book. So yep, 3 head. That'll make a difference. All right. Group 7. What'd you guys come up with? Perfect. Group 8.
3.75.
37.5. Yep. You're good. Yep. All right. So that is how much feed or how much forage your animals are going to need to consume in that grazing period, okay? So we are all there. All right. Now we have to factor in how much forage is actually available because, like I said, they're not going to graze everything. So they're going to use anywhere from 30 to 60% of grass typically. Keep in mind that there's areas in the pasture that might be bare, more mature, less palatable, some species that they may not want to consume. If there's areas, especially in higher concentrations where we've got fecal and urine on the ground, they're not going to graze that, so that's areas that aren't consumed. And so all these things are factors that affect our utilization. Trampling losses is another good example that can impact our utilization. So just some kind of general rules of thumb. In a continuous grazing system, we're really only getting about 30 to 40% utilization out of our forages. If we move to what we're going to call a slow rotational grazing system, so we've got 3 to 4 paddocks, so we get a little bump there. Right now we've moved to 40 to 55% utilization, and then as we move to more of a more intensive or more a fast rotation, 8 or more paddocks, we can get all the way up to 55 to 70% utilization. So this is obviously one of the benefits of going to a rotational system versus a continuous system, is we can get a little more utilization out of our forage production.
70% would be kind of like a daily use.
Yep.
So if you get into a dairy and you're using it twice a day, then you're going to be at 75%.
Okay.
Never reach 100%.
As much as we try. So we know how much our animals need to eat or are going to eat. Now we need to estimate how much forage production we actually have. So there's a few ways that we can do that. And so if we are going to measure the height of our forage, and you guys will practice this out in the field with grazing sticks out there. And say just hypothetically, our grass is 12 inches tall, and we're not going to take everything off. We want to leave a residual height of about 4 inches of forage. Then we had 8 inches available to graze. You can kind of estimate the forage dry matter available as 200 pounds of dry matter per inch of grazable forage. So we had 8 inches that we were able to graze. That's 200 pounds of dry matter per inch. That's just an estimate number that you guys can kind of use to figure that out. Then we've got 1,600 pounds of dry matter per acre available to use. Now, another method here, or what we're going to actually kind of go through here, is that we've already measured how much forage is available out there. So we're going to assume there's 2,190 pounds of dry matter per acre, because we went out and measured that for you guys, and you guys will actually get to go out and try that out for yourself. So if you were to take your available times your utilization rate, so in this example here, I have 1,000 just for simple math. I have 1,000 pounds of dry matter per acre times 50% utilization. I've got 500 pounds of standing forage available. So this is just my simple example. You guys are going to use this number here. So what you need to do now is estimate how much forage you have available. So going back to your table, each of your groups has that utilization percentage, right? So now you're going to take that value I gave you, so 2,190 pounds, times your percent utilization. So I think everybody's either going to have 40, 60, or 80% utilization.
You have to turn that into
A decimal, yep. So 0.4, 0.6, 0.8. All right, so my 80% utilization group, and keep in mind this is the same whether you're sheep or cattle for this part. So 80% utilization. So 80% of 2190. What did we come up with?
1752.
Yep. 40% utilization. Yep. 60%. All right. Good deal. All right, now we need to know, we know how much they need, we know how much we have available. Okay, so that's what you calculated in the first step and second step. Now we need to figure out how many acres we need, okay? So you're going to take your answer from part 1, the pounds of forage that your animals are going to need, and divide it by your available forage, which is what you just calculated. And that'll get you your acres that you need. It's a small number. It's going to start with 0.0 something something. Do what? For group what? Group 4, are you looking for your utilization number? It's 40%. Nope. Nope, not yet. So where you went wrong on there is that instead of 0.4 in that first step, you need to use the 0.75 for your length of day. Yep, that's what you need in the first step, and then you divide it by the one you calculated in the second step. Yep. So no, leave that number alone for now. So write that number down so you got it. Okay. And then your group 4, so you have you're going to target 40% utilization. So you've got your 2,190 of available forage times 40%. Yep. And then you'll divide those two numbers. 2,190. Anybody need help? All right.
So 150 pound sheep.
Yep.
Times 3, 450.
Yep.
Times 0.0.
Oh, your sheep, you guys have 9 head, not 3 head. So 150 times 9. Yep. So. And then 3% dry matter intake. Yep, you're 3%. Yep.
1350 times 3.
Yep, times 0.03. And then you're going to multiply that by your 0.75 for your 3/4 of a day. .75. And that comes from the, yep. Yes. Yep, I'm still here with you, but yep.
I just want to make this right. So I got the 35 pounds from the beginning, divided by 876. That's 0.0. I just rounded it to 48 per period. So is that 1742 per square feet per paddock?
What group were you? Yes. 3. Yes. Yep. Okay.
30.375?
For 30, yes. I rounded mine to 30.4, but yes. Yep. Yep. So now you'll need to calculate your your utilization or your available forage. So that's where that utilization number comes in. So you've got a percent utilization for your group. So 7, you guys are 40%. No, 80%, sorry, 80%. So 2,190, because that's your available forage. And that's the number I gave you. So it's not in your book, but yep, so 2,190. And then you guys are going to go for 80% utilization. So you need to calculate 80% of that.
So, I guess it's still a big market.
$1,752. Yep. So that is how much forage that you truly have available with your accounting for utilization is this number. So to figure, and that's per acre. So to figure out the number of acres that you need, you're going to take the.
This is for each animal?
Nope, that's your total. Yep, for your farm. So to calculate how many acres you need, now you need to take that number you calculated in the first part, the 30.4 or 3.75, this number, that's the pounds, divide that by this number, and that'll get you the acres that you need.
You're just taking this number and going up here.
Yes, yep, you're ahead, yep, you're good, yep. And so you should get, yep, perfect, 0.017. And that's how many acres you need. What group are you in? Group 7. I am a little bit different than you, but that might just be a rounding. It's a rounding thing because I rounded to 30.4 here. Yep, but yes, you did the math right. All right, did everybody come up with the acres they need? Should start with a 0.0 and then it's pretty small numbers, right? But we've got pretty small number of animals for a small period of time, right? Okay, so now that we've got our acres we need to figure out what size our paddock's going to be. So if we know we've got 35 feet wide, we need to convert that acres over to square feet. So you're going to take the acres that you just calculated and multiply that by 43,560, which is the square feet in an acre. And that's going to give you the square feet you need per paddock. All right, did we get our square feet? Do you guys have a question? No? Okay. You guys? What group are you? 5. Okay. 5.
I come up with 0.53 pounds for each. Like your cattle rate.
this part is not right. So let me back up here. So your group, I'm sorry, you said group 5? 5, all right. So group 5. So actually, this part is incorrect. Yep, that part's off. So 775 times 3 times 0.02 times 0.75. Let me do that math again, make sure I'm not wrong. Yeah, nope, that part, you're about double what you need to be. I'm not sure where that went wrong. So,
All right, so 775
times 3. Nope. Yep. Oh, sorry. You're
23
Yep. And then you're going to multiply that by 0.02. Times 0.75. So I'm trying to figure out where it's going wrong here. Yep. Yep. That's right. That's right. Yep. Yep, you did. Yeah, because you were double what you needed. Yep.
So when you get the square feet, you see which I got 0.5308.
Yep. Okay.
Take that and divide it by 36. Forage 1314.
Wait, where are you at? I'm sorry. Hang on. Calculate. Group 6. All right. So you got 0.053. Yep. And then you're going to multiply that by the 43,560, which is just a standard per square feet per acre. And then that'll give you your total square feet in your paddock.
Is that correct? I did it the wrong way.
Nope. You need 0.053 times 43,560. Yep. Yes, that's right. Nope. It's very small, and that's what throws people off. Yep. All right, so once you have your total square feet, you know your width, you can divide it by 35, which is your set width. Length times width equals the area, so we end up with the length value that you guys need. Any other question? Anybody need help as we're going through? Is everybody thoroughly confused?
Yeah, but I'm figuring it out.
Okay.
I get home, I'll have it figured out.
All right. I thoroughly confuse myself every year when I teach this, so I know. That's why every year I go through and make my cheat sheet for every group, because inevitably, no.
The goal is to get you to think about forage allocation
And
and forage available
in the amount that you actually need. And so yep.
And so what you all are going to find as we go through these exercises, but really, when you get on the farm, you're going to be doing this with your eyes most of the time, right? You don't want to graze too close. You want to make sure that you give it an adequate rest period. But over time, you'll be doing this with your eyes.
All right. So just a couple quick slides because I am probably out of time here. But we talked about trampling losses occurring. These are some good examples there that those certainly do occur, and we need to factor that in when we think about that rest. The other important thing that you all aren't going to worry about for your exercise today, because we're just putting them into one paddock, but when you get back home and you're trying to figure out how many paddocks do you actually need for your system, you need to know the number of days that you want that forage to rest. How many days are they going to be in that paddock? So how often are you going to try to move them? And that again, that kind of comes with some learning and trial and error and figuring out what works for your operation, and will vary depending on how quickly or slowly the forage is growing too. So 28 days is our kind of target rest in this example. We're going to do once weekly moves. So 28 over 7, and then 1 extra. So plus 1, that gets you 5 paddocks. So to get that 28 days of rest with once weekly moves, we need to plan a system that's got 5 paddocks, okay? And you can adjust that and make that much more intensive. Probably doesn't get a whole lot more simple than that, but there we go. So I kind of touched on this, that forage production's not static throughout the year. In times when that grass growth is really cranking along, we're going to need to probably rotate more quickly. Standing forage availability is going to vary. It will even vary from one rotation within your system to the next, let alone over year to year. So most of the time, we've got a set number of animals, right? And so we're not going to, we've got to adjust the system, i.e. how much space we give them, how quickly or slowly we move them through that system to account for that. Because we've got to, those animals have got to eat. We can't just say, oh, well, I've got 35 cow-calf pairs, but I only have enough forage for 20 of them, so I'm only going to put 20 in there. That doesn't work. So we've got to kind of account for that and adjust for that. Another thing that I didn't get into today, but something that you all do need to be factoring in, is that those calves eat forage too. So when they start to get just a couple months old, they're going to start actually eating quite a bit of forage. By the time they get 4 or 5 months of age, they're actually getting a lot of their nutrients from forage and from grazing. So with that, any questions? Yes, yep, we're going to go over that. We're going to give you guys, you guys are going to work on that when we get out to the farm. Yep. Yep. Yes, but they're a range, so but that kind of general range, and maybe the concept of going from continuous to a slow to a fast rotation, being able to increase your utilization with each of those, increases in management intensity, that I would bank your hat on. But to say you're absolutely going to get 30, 40, 50%, that's going to be a little bit more dependent on the species that are forage species that are out there, your animals, time of year, so. Yep.
Over time, you said, well, actually, I'm a little better than that. Maybe I'm not quite that good.
Yes. Yep. Yes.